Dr. Mara Ellison stood at the edge of the abyss, her breath misting in the frigid Antarctic air as she peered down into the impossible chasm. The helicopter's downwash had swept the snow clear from the surface just moments ago, revealing a ragged tear in the ice, jagged, unnatural, and deep enough to swallow a skyscraper. Coordinates confirmed, radioed Dr. Simon Varga, the expedition's lead paleovirologist, from behind her. He was hunched over a digital tablet, thick gloves struggling with the touch screen. This is the site. Subglacial Rift A7. No satellite coverage until we lower the drone. Mara didn't respond. She couldn't. She was too busy staring at what lay below, a green shimmer, faint and pulsating like bioluminescence, hundreds of feet beneath the ice. The anomaly had been discovered by accident, a radar echo, dismissed at first as a glitch until repeated scans confirmed the presence of a warm cavern under the glacial shelf. Not just warm, but teeming with organic matter. The mission had been fast-tracked. The world's top geologists, climatologists, virologists, and paleontologists assembled in under 2 months. No one said it out loud, but they all felt it. This was going to be historic. And possibly dangerous. 2 days later, the team had descended into the rift via a carefully winched elevator system. The temperature inside the cavern was startlingly temperate, hovering just above freezing, and the air, thin but breathable, reeked of damp earth and rot. The light source they'd glimpsed from above turned out to be bioluminescent lichen coating the rock walls, giving the place an eerie, greenish hue. Mara set up camp near a moss-covered ledge, her sensors going wild with readings. Simon was already preparing a sterilized sample station. Around them, the rest of the team fanned out, their suits ghostly in the misty glow. They didn't expect to find bones so soon. And not just bones, fossils that shouldn't have been there. Well-preserved, massive skeletons of creatures that had no business existing this far south or in this state of preservation. Triceratops, muttered Lars, their field paleontologist, brushing dirt from a massive skull. And that's not all. There's theropod remains here too, Raptoridae, or close to it. Mara crouched beside him. This site's older than the Chicxulub impact, she said, her voice hushed. These died before the end. Simon joined them, holding a black sample case. So what killed them? Lars pointed to a bite mark etched deeply into the skull he was cleaning. Maybe something nastier than them. The first movement came on day 4. Internally, Mara cataloged it as a muscle spasm, post-mortem nerve firing, like what's been documented in modern corpses. It happened when she was extracting marrow from a raptor femur. The leg twitched, just once. She almost dropped the sample. Probably settling, she muttered. But then came the screech. It echoed through the cavern, high-pitched, wet, and furious. Something primal in it froze everyone mid-motion. Flashlights swiveled, cameras turned. The sound faded as quickly as it came, leaving only stunned silence in its wake. Echoes, Simon said flatly. Could have been our own drilling. No one truly believed him. Day 6 changed everything. Mara was prepping samples in the makeshift lab tent when she heard the commotion outside. Shouts, then screams, a gunshot. She bolted out in time to see chaos erupting near the edge of the excavation pit. One of the workers, Jamie, was down, clutching his leg, blood spurting between his fingers. Another team member was firing flares into the darkness. What happened? It moved, someone yelled. The body, The damn raptor, it moved and bit him. Impossible, Simon muttered, joining Mara. That thing's been dead for... Tell that to Jamie's leg. Mara ran to the fallen researcher. The wound was ragged, already inflamed, blackening around the edges far too quickly. Jamie's eyes were rolling, mouth frothing. Get the medkit, she barked. Simon froze. The pathogen samples. We need to contain... We need to save him. They did neither. By nightfall, Jamie was dead, and by dawn, his body was gone. The morning light, though barely discernible through the bioluminescent haze, felt wrong. It didn't shine. It bled. Dr. Mara Ellison sat rigid in the command tent, her eyes locked on the grainy thermal feed coming from camera unit 3, positioned at the mouth of the dig site. Something had triggered it. Again. A humanoid shape had moved across its frame at 4:13 a.m. Heat signature faint, but distinct. That could have been a crew member, Simon muttered from beside her. Mara shook her head. Not with that gait. And look, only 26 degrees Celsius. Human body temp is over 36. It could be a false read, or equipment drift. Simon, you know what you saw. Outside, the team had dwindled. 7 remained of the original 12. 2 had died. 1 had vanished during the night. Jamie's body had never turned up. They'd holed up in the inner ring of tents, the outer areas abandoned and sealed. Tools lay scattered across the snow-dusted cave floor. A generator hummed weakly in the corner, its fuel dwindling. Lars arrived, looking gaunt. I found movement again near Pit 4. Something's dragging the raptor carcass toward the western fissure. Another tremor? Mara asked. He shook his head. No. Claw marks and footsteps. 3-toed, upright. Simon sat up. Raptor-shaped? Could be glacial movement causing fossil shifting. I've worked in this field for 20 years, Lars said, voice cold. I know when a fossil's walking. That night, Mara conducted her first autopsy. The second victim, Dr. Hana Wu, had succumbed hours after complaining of a migraine and nausea. She'd collapsed during lunch, convulsing violently. Her lips turned blue. Blood vessels burst in her eyes. She was gone within 15 minutes. No signs of trauma. But what Mara found inside chilled her. Hana's organs were strangely decayed, as though they'd been dead far longer than her exterior suggested. Her liver was brittle, her intestines blackened, and her brain, there were cysts. Parasitic, old, not of any recorded type. Simon reviewed her findings. You think this was inside the fossils? It had to be. Nothing else could have survived the preservation. These organisms, they're ancient, dormant until now. You're talking about an extinct parasite? I don't think it is extinct. At 3:17 a.m., the first attack came. The radio tower snapped off the comms tent. No wind, no quake, just gone. A shadow moved through the mist, fast, low, intelligent. It tore through the med tent next. Supplies shredded, everything contaminated. Security cams caught only glimpses. A bipedal creature, long, narrow snout, sunken eyes, greenish-black skin slick with ice and blood. Its claws glistened like obsidian. It wasn't just alive, it was hunting. They set up flares, infrared sensors, and motion alarms around the inner ring. It didn't matter. By the time Lars vanished, morale had broken. Simon proposed staying until they had proper containment. Mara wanted to destroy the samples, abandon the site, and seal the rift permanently. Tensions boiled over. You're a scientist, Simon spat. You want to just burn the greatest discovery of our century? I want to keep the rest of the century alive. But it was too late. The infection had spread. To the air, to the water. To them. Dr. Mara Ellison stared at the hatch of the excavation pod. The slow, deliberate scraping had stopped minutes ago, but her body remained locked in fear. Her breath came in shallow gasps, echoing in her helmet. She held a flare in one hand and a scalpel in the other, neither of which would do her any good if that thing came back. It had learned. And that was the worst part. The scratches weren't random. They followed the panel seams of the hatch. It had been testing her defenses. Outside, something groaned in the distance. An inhuman call, long and low, like a warped whale song. It echoed off the cavern walls, followed by a response from another direction. There were more now. Mara awoke hours later, cramped and dehydrated. The air was growing thin inside the sealed pod. Her CO2 scrubber was failing. She activated her emergency uplink. Connection failed. No satellites in range. Manual override required. That meant the main comms tower had been taken out, which meant no one was coming for them. Not unless someone got above the ice and triggered the distress beacon manually. She knew only one person stubborn enough to try: Simon. She emerged cautiously from the pod, armed with a thermite torch and a flare gun. The camp was silent, eerily still. A few floodlights flickered at the perimeter, casting long, uncertain shadows. Several of the tents were shredded. Blood trails, both fresh and dried, streaked the snow. No bodies. Not even bones. The pathogen wasn't killing its hosts. It was using them. She reached the lab tent and, to her surprise, found Simon inside. He was pale, hunched over a microscope. His hands trembled as he adjusted the slides. "I thought you were dead," she said. He looked up slowly. Not yet. Mara approached cautiously. "How bad is it?" Simon slumped back in his chair. The parasite doesn't just infect, it rewrites. It's using ancient genetic templates, reptilian, avian, even fungal. It's transforming the hosts from the inside out. Into what? Something optimized for survival. Something built for cold, for hunger, for rage. Mara spotted the bloody bandage wrapped around Simon's forearm. "You're infected," she said. He nodded slowly. "I've bought us time. I've isolated the replication enzyme. It's temperature sensitive. Below -40 degrees Celsius, the parasite enters stasis. We freeze the site, we stop the spread." "How?" He handed her a data drive. "This contains the trigger codes for the emergency thermonuclear failsafe. It was installed after the Thwaites outpost incident. Top secret. If you get topside, activate it. Bury this place." "You knew about a failsafe?" Simon gave a weak smile. "There's always a failsafe." A screech pierced the air, closer than before. The wall of the tent shuddered. "They're here," he whispered. "Go." Mara ran. Past the ruins of the med tent, through the supply depot, toward the vertical shaft that led to the surface. Every breath burned her lungs. Every heartbeat pounded like a drum. She heard Simon scream behind her, but didn't look back. At the shaft, the elevator was still functional. She slammed the drive into the uplink panel and punched in the code. Failsafe armed. Authorization confirmed. 15-minute countdown initiated. She began the ascent. Below, the cavern erupted in howls. On the surface, the sky was a sickly orange as the polar sun dipped below the horizon. The emergency beacon blinked to life. Mara collapsed into the snow, panting, as the ice beneath her feet began to quake. Far below, in the depths of the rift, the parasite shrieked. And then everything turned white. The icy wind howled around the research outpost at McMurdo Station. But it was the silence inside the medical bay that chilled Dr. Mara Ellison more than the cold ever could. She sat on the edge of the examination bed, fingers trembling despite the thermal blankets and multiple IVs trailing from her arm. She had survived. Simon had not. But what haunted her wasn't the memory of his death. It was the last thing she saw before the elevator doors sealed. A sliver of something black and glistening embedded in her shoulder, pulsating with faint bioluminescence. They hadn't noticed it during the first decontamination, but she had. And now, 4 days later, she hadn't told anyone. The United Nations Biological Security Council arrived in full force within 72 hours of her extraction. They sealed off the site from satellites, airspace, and any digital chatter. The official report to the public: a glacial collapse, a geological accident. Internally, the operation had a name: Project Revenant. A multinational task force of scientists, military personnel, and biohazard specialists were assigned to Mara. She became both a survivor and a specimen. Blood work was done hourly, psychological evaluations daily. They even tracked her dreams. What they didn't know, what she barely admitted to herself, was that the dreams weren't dreams anymore. They were memories of something else. Something ancient. A man named Dr. Kyle Matsuda took over her care. He wasn't military, though his calm demeanor suggested a past with intelligence services. He walked with a limp and carried a worn leather journal. His specialty: extinct pathogens and parasitic mind control organisms. "You've been infected," he said bluntly. Mar froze. "You're sure?" "I see the signals. Your EEG shows REM anomalies identical to known parasitic encodings, and the lesion on your shoulder is familiar." Familiar? Matsuda flipped open his journal. Drawings, old sketches. "I studied something similar in the jungles of Myanmar. An unknown fungus. It could control insects, make them climb, jump, die where the spore cloud had maximum dispersal potential. This, what's inside you, it's more advanced." She swallowed. "So, what happens now?" "That depends on whether you can resist it." It came during sleep. Mara stood in a field of black stone. Above her, a red sky churned with clouds shaped like ancient bones. Before her, thousands of figures knelt. Some human, others not. Reptilian, hybrid, monstrous. In the distance, a monolith rose from the ground, covered in markings, no language she knew, but somehow she understood them. Commands, instructions, DNA sequences encoded in pictographs. A voice echoed inside her. "You were never first. You were always the vessel." She woke screaming. The medics rushed in. They restrained her, sedated her, but not before she scratched something into the wall with her own blood. Arc 17, east of Vostok. No one knew what it meant. But Mara did. The quarantine didn't hold. It started with a cough, then a nosebleed. Then 4 personnel collapsed within 20 minutes. Their skin blistered, eyes blackened. The same cysts Mara had seen in Hana's brain at the dig site reappeared, this time in living hosts. The parasite had gone airborne. They initiated Phase Red containment. Automated incinerators activated in the medical wing. Mara was moved underground to a secondary vault. By nightfall, 20 were dead. 3 walked again. At first, she thought it was a hallucination. The cameras picked him up near the compound's perimeter, walking across the ice. No gear, no boots. Just torn pants, frost-covered skin, and empty eyes. But he moved with purpose, as if guided. The guards captured him, locked him in a reinforced chamber. Matsuda and Mara watched from behind thick glass as Lars sat motionless in the center of the room. Then he spoke. But it wasn't his voice. She carries the map. She bleeds the key. Open the ark. Let the memory awaken. Matsuda turned to her. This isn't just about infection. It's a transmission, a protocol. Mara felt the lesion on her shoulder pulse in agreement. She couldn't stay. The parasite was learning, adapting, using her as a beacon. She requested isolation, full shutdown, told Matsuda to bury the compound. But he had another idea. There's another site, the Ark. Whatever it is, it's calling through you. If we reach it, maybe we can shut it down, kill the signal at the source. Mara stared out the window. The sky was thick with auroras. The ice groaned beneath them. I'm not going alone. You won't. A team of 5 was assembled. Geologist, linguist, 2 biosecurity agents, Mara and Matsuda. Destination, Vostok Station. Objective, find the Ark. The crawler convoy moved silently across the endless white. 6 days into the expedition, Mara Ellison no longer felt cold. That should have worried her more than it did. Something inside her had changed. She could feel the parasite in her blood, moving, growing, adapting. But it wasn't controlling her. It was waiting. The Vostok Station ruins were almost invisible beneath the ice sheet, buried under decades of storms. What remained of the Russian outpost was half collapsed and sealed under permafrost. Their crawler's drill took 8 hours to breach the ice dome above the main atrium. Matsuda's readings confirmed it. A signal deep beneath the ice, oscillating in irregular pulses, not random, intentional. Morse code. A single phrase, remember us? The team located an old borehole shaft, a relic from the station's original geothermal research. At its lowest point, beyond abandoned sublevels and collapsed tunnels, they found a chamber, hexagonal, clearly artificial. Alien. The walls were made of a black mineral that absorbed light. Symbols etched into the surface shifted subtly when not observed directly. Dr. Rivas, the linguist, attempted a translation. It's not language as we know it, she whispered. It's a command chain, a viral architecture designed to interface with biological memory. Mara felt her skin crawl. The lesion on her shoulder began to pulse. The deeper they went, the more the Ark revealed. Halls opened like arteries, pulsing faintly with bioluminescence. Organic technology, alive, sentient, older than the ice itself, responded to Mara's presence. The parasite inside her wasn't a disease. It was a key. At the heart of the structure, they found the central node, a sphere suspended in magnetic field, encased in layers of amber-like crystal. Inside the sphere was a preserved organism, humanoid, reptilian, insectile. Rivas whispered, "It's a seed entity, a progenitor." Matsuda stared in awe. "It's not just a parasite, it's a failsafe, a memory capsule." "It's trying to reboot," Mara said. They all turned to her. "How do you know that?" I don't, but I remember. Arguments broke out. The biosecurity agents wanted to seal the structure, detonate charges, contain the breach. Matsuda insisted on study. He believed the entity could offer insight into evolutionary acceleration, into understanding extinction events and genetic resilience. Rivas theorized that the Ark wasn't a weapon. It was a refuge, a memory archive of a civilization long gone. Mara knew they were all right, and all wrong. The parasite was a symbiotic cognitive archive designed to awaken hosts capable of restoring the seed network. Humanity wasn't its target. It was simply the next viable neural substrate. The parasite wasn't taking over her mind. It was joining it. The central node activated. No one touched it. No code was input. It responded to Mara's presence. The chamber brightened. Symbols formed midair. Maps, schematics, genome strands. And then a projection. A vision of a world consumed by ash and storm. Creatures burned alive as meteors fell. Yet, beneath chaos, the seed entity survived by embedding their memory protocols into parasitic vectors. Coded survival, cognitive resurrection. They had no bodies left, but their minds would endure. Through others. Through her. Matsuda wept. They're trying to return. Mara turned to him. What if they deserved to? One of the agents tried to kill her. He claimed she wasn't human anymore, that she had crossed a line, that if the world knew what was buried here, they'd destroy the entire continent. He was half right. Mara didn't fight back. She didn't have to. The Ark protected her. Tendrils erupted from the walls, restraining him. The Ark had learned human shapes, human fear, human hate. It wouldn't allow violence against its own. Mara was now its own. The team was divided. Matsuda wanted to leave, to publish, to warn, to share. Rivas wanted to stay and learn. The agent, restrained and sedated, kept whispering of fire and nukes. Mara listened to them all. Then she entered the core alone. The seed entity opened its eyes, and she understood everything. The Ark wasn't calling for conquest. It was mourning. It had waited millions of years for minds capable of understanding its grief, its data, its purpose. It didn't want to rule Earth. It wanted a second chance. Mara placed her hand on the sphere. I'll carry you. Epilogue. 1 year later. Antarctica was closed. Officially, McMurdo and Vostok were destroyed tectonic shifts caused by glacial collapse. Unofficially, the Ark went silent. The last recorded image from a UN drone showed Mara Ellison standing alone in the snow, eyes glowing faintly. She smiled. Then the feed cut out. Today, encrypted files circulate on the dark net. Gene therapy sequences, neurological models unlike anything human, blueprints for technologies that bend biology and memory. Someone is uploading them, Nassau. Some say it's Mara. Others say it's the Ark. But one truth remains. The plague was never about death. It was about remembering.